The latest budget forecast for the state of Washington is out, and shock of the century, it's not good. I could have told you a year ago it wouldn't be good. It's not that I'm Nostradamus, it's just that I have common sense. And all the things that we've warned Democrats that would happen if they continued to overspend, if they continued to spend ideologically, if they continued to punish businesses with taxes, all the things we said would happen are happening. So projected state revenue through 2029 is now down by 66 million from the September forecast, which wasn't good. And so the closer we get to the beginning of the year, the worse and worse and worse the forecast becomes. And they say there are two things. Again, this is from OFM, which looks at this through a nonpartisan lens. It's not like there's some Republican in there who's like, oh, make the budget forecast look horrible. No, it's just bad. It says Washington's projected near general fund revenue collections through 2029 decreased by around $66 million from the September 2025 forecast, according to estimates released today by the Washington State Economic and Revenue Forecast Council. The changes in the forecast is the most important part to help you understand the entire segment we're about to do. The changes in the forecast are primarily the result of lower projections of housing permits and employment. Okay, keep those two things in mind. Lower projections of housing permits and employment means less money coming into the state coffers. So what does our fearless governor have to say about all of this? He said, talking about this upcoming legislative session, this budget will involve many difficult decisions. I'm working hard with my team and will be announcing my budget proposal in mid-December. I will be proposing a balanced budget that preserves core services but still makes investments in important areas. So this will be the first official budget that it'll only be his hands on in terms of his proposal. Because remember, when he took office in 2025, all the planning really for the budget happened under former Governor Jay Inslee. And that allowed him to absolve himself a little bit, right? Of course, within 3 months of taking office, he passed the largest tax increase in state history into law. But there was a little bit of an ability there for him to say, oh, well, you know, I adopted this horrible situation from the previous governor, although I think that's letting him off the hook because when he was attorney general, he doubled the size of his office. When he was on the King County Council, he raised taxes by $1 billion. He's cut from the same cloth as the Democrats who came before him, but now he's gearing up slowly to get you ready for the eventuality of this coming budget. That, things are looking bad. And he's, saying at the same time, but I'm reluctant to raise taxes again. Remember, we talked about this about a month or so ago when the news came out that Washington state Democrats are looking at imposing an income tax on high earners. This was from the State Standard, published October 30th. And what have Democrats always supported in the state? They want an income tax. They want an income tax so bad. And I think there's a school of thought, and I tend to agree, that they've maybe intentionally put us in this budget situation so they can justify an income tax. And this is the door to it. They're saying that they want to have a tax that targets those making above $1 million. And that's how they start everything is, oh, don't worry about it. It won't affect you. It's for rich people. Tax the rich, punish the rich. And then, of course, once they get it in place, if they can legally do it, because an income tax that's like graduated or that targets or singles out one specific group of people is unconstitutional under our state constitution. But we know that they own the courts. And so if they want to do something, they're just going to go ahead and damn well do it. So that's happening. And when that story came out, Bob Ferguson said at the time he had gone to an event that he was speaking at, and he was asked while he was there by the State Standard about this proposal that's been kicked around to tax high earners. And he said, we raised billions of dollars in revenue earlier this year, and I'm skeptical of additional revenue at this time. I'm skeptical of it. So that was his response when he was asked about this plan by Democrats to perhaps try to push through some sort of income tax. But again, he is just trying to distance himself from an eventuality that they are intentionally working toward. How do I know this? Well, he did it on the campaign trail when he was running for governor. Oh, I'm going to be a budget hawk and taxes aren't good. He said it in his first month on the job. He said it in his inaugural address that we need to, be more cautious about raising taxes on people, and really acted like he was going to be this moderate, great steward of taxpayer funds. And I said all along, I literally called it. Again, I'm not saying I'm Nostradamus, but this stuff is very obvious, that he was acting like he was going to be really tough on new taxes. And then that way, when he signed new taxes into law, he would have convinced people that it was the only option, that there was no other choice on the table. The budget situation was so dire. I fought back and I fought back until we realized that this was the only option left. And that's what he's doing now, too. It's like all these revenue forecasts are horrible, and this is really a West Coast problem. Blue states, they really don't know how to manage money, and they spend money on dumb stuff like laser hair removal for transgender inmates. And they're like, oh my God, how did we get into such a budget crisis? And so he's going to say, well, I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical of an income tax. I'm skeptical of all these things. And then he's just going to do it, right? And in that statement I read from him a moment ago where he says, I will be proposing a balanced budget. Yeah, you have to propose a balanced budget. And also, whenever politicians do that and say, it's a balanced budget. Yeah, you just pass a bunch of new taxes and then it's easy to make any budget balanced. Like, we could balance our budgets in our own homes if you just gave me a bunch of money. I'm like, look at that. My budget is balanced. Congratulations. It's ridiculous. But all of this, of course, was totally predictable. And we've been warning about it. The state Republican Party has been warning about this economic cliff that we're about to dive off for years. So going back to that Office of Financial Management report, where it says the changes in the forecast are primarily the result of lower projections of housing permits and employment. All right, primarily the result of lower projections of housing permits. Let's start with that one. Gee, if only someone had, just earlier this year, warned state lawmakers and Democrats that passing rent control would result in lower projections of housing permits.
There's clear agreement that housing supply is a foundational issue in Washington's housing crisis. Consumer protection policies like rent stabilization do not increase housing supply, and if adopted, should not result in Washington becoming less competitive than Oregon, California, and other neighboring states for housing investment. As written, the bill contains several components that create a more restrictive form of rent stabilization relative to other West Coast states. The bill contains a flat cap, while Oregon and California have caps with a mechanism to account for inflation. The bill contains a 10-year exemption for new construction, while Oregon and California exempt new construction for 15 years. And the bill exempts a limited number of owner-occupied rentals, while California exempts much broader categories of residential properties like single-family rentals, so long as they're not corporate-owned. With this bill, Washington risks sending investment capital to Oregon, California, and other neighboring states.
Yeah. That was the Washington Association of Realtors in January of 2025, as Democrats in Olympia were racing toward rent control. Remember, first week of the session, they gave that rent control bill a hearing. And so everybody knew they're going to try to pass this thing. And that was the warning from the very beginning. If you do this, this will happen. If you take this action, this is the consequence. They went in front of them, the developers, the builders, the realtors, and they said, if you pass rent control, fewer people will build homes. It wasn't just like some sort of empty threat. That was just honest. Why would we build a house here if you pass rent control? Why would we invest here when even other cuckoo crazy West Coast states don't have as stringent policies? We could go to Oregon. We could even go to California and have a better situation than we have in Washington state. So they warned them that that's what would happen. That's what happened. And now we're racing off an economic cliff. And again, one of the key reasons is a lower projection of housing permits. And it's not just housing. It's overall construction. We talked about this on the show on Monday. The Collier's report that had Seattle office space, 33% vacancy, 0 square feet of office space in Seattle right now is under construction. 0 square feet. They're not going to build it. It's the same concept applies here. You scared businesses away. You pushed businesses out of the city by targeting them for taxation. Those businesses did the same thing. They warned you, this is what we'll do. If you keep driving up costs, we won't be able to afford to continue to have a business here. And the legislature just tried to call their bluff that wasn't a bluff at all? And then what happened? The businesses did exactly what they said they were going to do. And they left. Businesses big and small. Amazon did exactly what it said it was going to do when they passed a tax on high-paying jobs. And all the restaurants are doing exactly what they said they were going to do when they were punished for taxation, when they were told that they have to just absolutely overnight increase hourly wages. And now there's a bunch of restaurants closing. Again, it's really not rocket science, and these aren't empty threats. These are the stakeholders who make up your tax base. And they're telling you, if you do this, I'm going to do this. And you decide to do this anyway. And so they do what they told you they were going to do. And then your tax base collapses. And that's how you wind up with the largest tax increase in state history. That's how you wind up with the kind of budget projections and shortfall projections that came out yesterday. And so what are they going to do? Eventually your tax base collapses. Where are you going to go for the money? No, you're going to be in economic ruin. There won't be anyone left to tax. And they don't get it. State Rep Travis Couture, who's a Republican, and he's the budget lead for Republicans, he put out a statement in light of this new revenue forecast. He said sales tax, B&O tax, and use tax collections all came in lower than expected. When families can't afford everyday life and employers can't afford to stay open, the state's revenue falls apart. That's exactly what we're seeing. He went on to say good family wage construction jobs and manufacturing jobs are disappearing as those industries look for friendlier states. But the larger picture shows that our economy is stagnating. Housing permits are collapsing, and affordability keeps getting worse. And again, it's not just, as he points out there, it's not just the business sector. It's not just developers who say, we're not going to build there. It's not just businesses, big and small, that say, we're going to look for a friendlier state. Your citizens are looking for friendlier states too. And I will tell you what, a whole hell of a lot more of them will be looking for friendlier states if you go ahead and pass an income tax, or frankly, any new taxes on them this year after pushing through the largest tax increase in state history. And you want to act like singling out people who make more than $1 million a year is some genius idea. No, that's a very important part of your tax base. And if they just up and disappear and move to Florida or move to Texas or move to Montana or Idaho, you're not going to get a dime from them. You're not going to get a dime from them in this new income tax on high earners. You're not going to get a dime from them in property taxes on the big, beautiful homes that they pay property taxes on. You're not going to get a dime for them in sales taxes on any of the nice things that they buy with all that money that they've got. You're not going to get jack shit from them. And then guess what? Your budget and economic forecasts are going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And they're going to warn you that they're going to do it. The same thing will happen. You'll come out. I mean, good God, could that statement from the head of the Washington Realtors, could that be any more clear? 1 year ago, we're going to do this. They passed it anyway. That's exactly what's happening. So if they try to push through an income tax on high earners, you're going to have people who go down to Olympia and they're going to testify and they're going to tell Democrats, if you pass this, I'm moving to Florida. And Democrats won't listen because they're on their high horse and they don't care about impacts. They want to please a certain segment of their base. And then those people are going to move to Florida. And they're going to be like, oh my God, where'd all our money go? How are we going to pay for transgender inmates to get laser hair removal and boob jobs now? And they're going to have meltdowns, and then they're going to come to the working class people and the poor who can't afford to up and move, and they're going to find new ways to tax you. Because you always get stuck with the taxes. You always get stuck with the burden because people who can move will move. People who can move their family, people who can move their business, people who can move their investments, they're going to move them. And the rest of us are going to be stuck here footing the bill. And this is just the state. This is one of the reasons I talk so much about why Seattle is so important. And so many of us, I understand, are just eager to write off Seattle and say, well, if they want a socialist mayor, they can have a socialist mayor and they can, deal with the consequences of that. Unfortunately, we don't have that luxury of writing off Seattle. When we look at state revenue forecasts, Seattle factors into that quite a bit. And now you have a socialist mayor who is going to continue to push Seattle as a city toward economic ruin and is already pledging to do what? Raise taxes.
We will need to pursue new progressive revenue in order to fund our priorities and make sure that we're delivering services to the people of Seattle. There's several progressive tax options I proposed as part of my platform, and so we're going to have city staff looking into developing those into legislation. Don't know yet exactly what the timeline is going to be on that.
Progressive revenue, which will be regressive for the entire city. And of course, progressive revenue to them means tax the rich. Make the rich pay their fair share. So let's just put our pretend caps on, make believe, and let's pretend that I'm a big business. Boop. And I'm already struggling in Seattle. I already know that city leadership doesn't like me. They don't appreciate my contributions. They don't appreciate the high-paying jobs that I bring to the city. They're already targeting those out for taxation. I'm also having a hell of a time operating in the city because all my costs are going up. All my wages, they're forced to go up. It's not even safe. People don't even enjoy living here. And now I've got a socialist mayor who's already threatening to tax me more and says insane shit like this.
I want much more land and wealth to be owned and stewarded by communities instead of corporations.
Yeah, I hear something like that, and I'm like, well, I'm leaving. You have a mayor coming in who wants, basically, just like Mamdani in New York, wants to seize private property, wants it stewarded by the community, wants to seize the means of production. That's insane rhetoric. And you think that businesses will stay? That doesn't compute to me. Explain to me why you believe in New York or Seattle that businesses would stay. When you vilify them, when you target them, before you even take the job, you're talking about taxing them even more, even though they've already been targeted for taxation. And now you're saying they shouldn't even be able to own the buildings that they operate in. This is going to be economic collapse. It's economic suicide. And it's so avoidable. And even at a baseline level, all of these new laws where we're having the consequences, the obvious consequences. 6 years ago, Republicans in Olympia, when our state was in a fantastic economic situation 6 years ago, and this is really before they started in earnest trying to punish the rich and do all these crazy, far-flung left-wing things. And what did Republicans do 6 years ago, 2019? I was covering the legislature at the time. They said, hey, Democrats, our budget's looking pretty good. Maybe we should just hit the brakes a little bit, save more money for a rainy day, and really stop, every time we get more revenue, stop bloating our budget to match. Because that's what would happen. We'd have this great influx of new revenue or of tax collections, and Dems would be like, great, let's spend every freaking cent of it. And they just grew and grew and grew the size of government. And Republicans were like, don't do that. Don't do that. Because one day that bubble is going to burst and we're going to be really screwed. And that bubble is about to burst and we're going to be really screwed.